Okay guys, I think I've sorted the map out for this. So, if we win both games, we have a chance to make the knockouts of the Champions League again, but only if results go our way. Countering that, we're not actually in that good a shape on the coefficient table at the moment. So, what I think might be best for us in terms of the Build a Nation thing is if we end up in the Europa League, which is where we currently are, okay? So staying in third would be nice, but I think we need some points just to make sure of that. So obviously we want to go out there, play to win these next two games, but I want you to not win by too much. Are you on board? Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 113 of Husavik Heroes here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and coming up in today's episode we wrap up the group stages of the Champions League for 2030. We take on RB Leipzig at home and then Partizan away, and we will see what that does to this group table that you can see on screen now. So if you are looking forward to today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this Build a Nation save here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated, but this is what the group does look like going into today's episode. We could still finish bottom of the group and miss out on European knockout football entirely. We could still actually finish top of this group as well, so there's a lot going on here. We could finish anywhere in the group, albeit it is going to be very dependent on other results. The other games going on in today's episode both involve Inter Milan. First off, they take on Partizan at home. You would imagine that is a game that Inter Milan should be winning. Off the back of that, a very big game, Leipzig hosting Inter Milan, that could have some big ramifications in terms of who does make the top two in this Champions League group. But we do have one addition to our squad off the back of yesterday's episode, that game against Inter Milan at home, as well as our end of season review. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. But Benjamin Rubio is back for both games, hopefully, in today's episode. So we are back to our strongest possible squad available for these last two games, which is very nice indeed. We'll just give you guys a quick update on the coefficient before we do get into these games as well. As I did mention it in the intro, we're not actually looking that great. I thought we'd be on for a decent rise here on the table, but if we have a look at what the coefficient does look like at the end of the season, once we do scroll down so you can actually see what I am talking about, but we are currently in 16th. Earlier on at the start of the group stage, I did think we should be jumping above a few teams here in this current season, but if we go to the coefficient at the end of the season, we are actually on for a slight decrease at the moment. So the ideal situation, I think, in today's episode is if we can pick up 2 wins, just see where that does leave us, and maybe dropping down to the Europa League wouldn't be so bad. Of course, making the final of that competition a few seasons ago, having another deep run in the Europa League might actually be the best thing for the coefficient this time around, after we didn't have quite as good a coefficient season last season when we did make the first knockout round of the Champions League for the first time. So there's lots going on in today's episode in terms of what could happen both for where we end up in the knockout stages, and also what effect that might have in terms of the coefficient table. As I said, I think going down to the Europa League might be for the betterment of the Build a Nation side of this save for this season at least. But as I said, back to full strength for this one. We might make a change for this Leipzig game with some players on yellow cards, because I do think the Partizan game could end up being quite important if they pick up some points there against Inter Milan. But we'll come back shortly with the team sheets and see what we can do here against RB Leipzig from the Laugarders Volla. And here are the team sheets for this game against RB Leipzig. As you can see there, Benjamin Rubio is back up front. We have also bought in Alejandro Meza at left back. He has a nice green link there with Frederick Larsson, which might be useful. Andy Harwood hasn't been that great when we've brought him into the team for the last few games in terms of his average rating, and also Ali Ramadan will start in place of Thiago Polo on a yellow card. So changing a few things up at the back, but we do welcome back Benjamin Rubio, and hopefully we can get some revenge on RB Leipzig for the first game of this group stage. And up to the 22-minute mark for our first highlight of this game, we have a corner. Basaro Gay gets his head on the end of that and gets that through the hands of Torres in goal. That's the first thing we've done in this entire game in terms of the stats. So far, it has been all RB Leipzig, but Kalen Rakasan picks out Basaro Gay there at the near post, 22 minutes gone, 1-0 Volsungur. And we have to wait to the 38-minute mark for our next highlight. Is a free kick here to RB Leipzig as they do look to play out from the back. Some news from the other game. Partizan are beating Inter Milan 1-0 so far away from home. So this would be a game, if that was the result, that we do certainly need to win just to stay above those guys going into the last game of the group stages. But a good start from us off the back of that goal from the corner. Before then, it was certainly RB Leipzig on top in terms of the stats, but we have even things up off the back of that. But that is poor at the far post. We are getting caught out quite a bit like that so far in the group stages of this Champions League. Maybe we need to look for some more aerial threatening wingbacks here, because we are getting caught out quite a bit in terms of these sort of goals in the group stages of the Champions League so far. And unfortunately, we do concede an equaliser there. Jobaslai given far too much space there at the far post. Matthews doesn't challenge him in the air. Poor play there from the Irishman. 1-1 just shy of half-time. And not too long before half-time, we are back down the other end for a corner of our own. Ramadan gets his head on the end of that one, just puts it wide. And it does look like we will be going to half-time locked up here at 1-1 as one of the Partizan players does pick up a late red card. So hopefully that gives Inter Milan a chance to just get back in this game, because that would certainly seal us third spot in the group, or at least help us on the way if they can get a win in that game and we can get something out of this one. But we're playing fairly well here at halftime. We'll just motivate the boys a little bit and hopefully kick on in the second half as we are locked up here at 1-1. And only 2 minutes into the second half, we are going to make our first substitution. Alejandro Meza has just picked up a knock, is down to a very low red heart. So Andy Harbour will come on for him for most of the second half. And about 5 minutes off the back of that early substitution, we do have a throw-in out on the right-hand side. John Matthews will put this right into the mix. So Benjamin Rubio gets that back out to the Irishman. And Nicholas Zimmerman right on the edge of the box cranks that into the left corner. And we have our lead back here at home, 2-1 Volsungur with just under 40 minutes left. That's exactly what we wanted back after half-time. Good little move here from the throw-in. Rubio gets that all the way back out to Matthews, and Zimmerman still has quite a bit of work to do when he first receives the ball, but they sag off him. His swag's on. He puts that into the top left corner, 2-1 with most of the second half left. And up to the hour mark, we are going to make our second substitution at this time. Frederick Larson is struggling out there on the left wing, so Chaka Traore to come on for him for the last half hour. And with about 15 minutes left in this one, we do have a late free kick here, albeit Chaka Traore puts too much sauce on that one, and Torres is able to claim that in goal for RB Leipzig. News from the other game, Inter Milan have grabbed an equaliser, so if things stand the way that they are, we will guarantee ourselves third spot, at least with the result as it is at the moment. But John Matthews plays that over the top. Zimmerman from a tight angle. Chaka Traore just had to tap that in, but some great work there from the RB Leipzig defence, and they spare themselves going down 2 goals here. In this one, we try and pick out Ramadan there at the near post. Can't quite do it. We'll just see if we get anything else going from this highlight. Zimmerman gets a header off there, but he was offside. Still 2-1 with just over 12 minutes left, and we are going to make our last substitution as well. Benjamin Rubio not going that great out there on a 6.6. Porstein Anason will come on for him, and we'll move Kalen Rakasan up to striker for the last 10 minutes or so with a 2-1 lead. And up to the 83-minute mark, we are down our end here for a goal kick. Hopefully, we can just hold on here for these last few minutes just to make sure that we do at least finish third in this group. And from there, hopefully pick up some nice points in the last game away at Partizan and see what that does in terms of where we do end up in terms of European knockout football for tomorrow's episode. And we do get the ball back here and try and get something going here down the left-hand side through Chaka Traore. Nice ball there for Porstein Anason. Tight angle, forces a decent save there out of Torres in goal. It goes out for another corner. We'll see what we can do here through our striker, Kalen Rakasan, as Inter do draw ahead there against FK Partizan. So we are now in a great position to at least finish third in this group, but no danger from that corner. We switch the ball out to Zimmerman, back to Giroud. We might get one more shot off here potentially in this highlight, but RB Leipzig do deal with that ball into the mix. Is still 2-1 inside the last 5 minutes. And we have a very late highlight in this game. It's a free kick with only 1 minute left. Inter Milan are still beating Partizan. If we can hang on for a win here, we would guarantee ourselves third in the group. So hopefully we don't blow things here inside this last half minute, as we have been known to do in the past against Barcelona especially. Tight angle here for Zimmerman, gets a shot off, but it rebounds back off his shins, goes out for a goal kick. But hopefully by the time this takes place, it will more or less be game over. And it is RB Leipzig here, somewhat on the counter-attack, albeit Jaeger is offside there. And hopefully that will be full time. We do have a late free kick in this one. Ali Ramadan will take it. Hopefully we just knock it about short, which it does look like we are going to do. Poor Stein Anderson tries to play a ball forward there, but we pick up a win. And I think with the result in the other game, that does mean we are going to finish third at worst in this group. We get a little bit of revenge on RB Leipzig for the first game of the group stage. We win 2-1 at home, so that's 3 wins over those guys in 4 meetings over the past 2 seasons. And hopefully that, as I said, will secure us third spot at worst in this group, depending on exactly how that other result did end up there between Partizan and Inter Milan. And right down the bottom, you can see, possibly, if my head is not blocking it, that Inter Milan have picked up a 2-1 win there. We're on 7 points. Partizan are on 3 points. They cannot overtake us. We have European knockout football to look forward to yet again coming up in tomorrow's episode. But we could also still make our way into the Champions League knockouts, even though that might not be something we actually want to do in terms of that coefficient table. But whether we can make our way into that top 2 is going to depend entirely on the result between Leipzig and Inter on the last match week, and also what we can do against FK Partizan. We'll come back shortly, check in on HK before we do get into that possibly decisive last game of the group stage away at Partizan. And we are back, about to get stuck into the last game of the Champions League group stage. Before we do get into that, we're going to have a quick look at Group C to see how HK did get on. Unfortunately, as you can see, they got absolutely battered throughout that group. They lost 8-2 on that match week that we did just play there against RB Leipzig. They got a red card in the second half despite a double there to the young striker in Bird. So a heavy loss there against AC Milan. And off the back of that, they did get a goal against Sevilla, but ended up losing 1-3 at home. So they pick up absolutely no points in the group stages of the Champions League. So as I suggested a few times while this was going on in the Champions League, they probably would have been better off actually losing that playoff last week and making their way down into the group stages of the Europa League. But HK did very well to get into the group stages of the Champions League. That will no doubt help those guys out quite a bit financially, but in the end they give us absolutely no help in the group stages of a European competition, albeit they probably helped us out more than any other team has done in this save so far, just through their efforts in qualifying. But now we're going to have a look at our group going into the last game of this one. As you can see, Inter Milan have already qualified on 10 points. We can draw level with them, but they would have the head-to-head over us, of course, with a win in their favour, as well as that draw at home from yesterday's episode. So they do have the head-to-head record over us through Inter Milan, so we cannot go past those guys. So what we need to happen to get past RB Leipzig into the Champions League knockouts is for those guys to not pick up any points from that home game against Inter Milan, and for us to beat Partizan. We could end up on level points with them, but then it will depend, I think, on goal differential, with both of us sharing a win each in the head-to-head record. We are currently on 1 goal difference. They are on 4. And if we do go back and have a look at the results from the last time these matches did take place in this year's Champions League, you can see that Leipzig did actually beat Inter Milan away from home. So you'd probably favour Leipzig to be winning that game in front of their home crowd. Of course, we beat Partizan 4-0. We are yet to lose to Partizan, so hopefully we can keep that record up. There is a situation here where we could end up on 10 points and still end up in the Europa League. That's probably the perfect scenario in terms of the coefficient, but this is a game we certainly should be winning. But we're going to be keeping a big eye out on that game between Inter and RB Leipzig, because if RB Leipzig do not win that one, we are in with a sneaky chance of making our way through to the knockouts of the Champions League. But we'll come back shortly with everyone available yet again, see where we end up as we take on Partizan in our last game of the Champions League group stage. And here are the team sheets for this last game of the Champions League group stage for us here at Volsungur. There is the Partizan lineup. Probably not too many familiar names in that team for you. In terms of us, we are bringing Thiago Polo back into the starting lineup here for Ali Ramadan, but that is our only change from that prior win against RB Leipzig. And let's see where we end up off the back of this game. And we had to wait all the way towards the half-hour mark for our first highlight. Is a free kick, which we try and put in towards the back post, but they do deal with it there, do Partizan, but Elias Anderson tracks back to get the ball back for us. They head that one clear as well, but Alejandro Meza is there to get us back on the attack. You might see behind my head, Leipzig are beating Inter, and Frederick Larsson grabs the opener for us here off the back of a Alejandro Meza assist, and we are 1-0 up here against Partizan, albeit with that result in the other game, we would still only end up in the Europa League, but doing so on 10 points, which is probably quite a good result in terms of the coefficient table, even if it's a slight regress from what we did in terms of actual on-field accomplishments last season. We do go 1-0 up here at the half-hour mark. And not too long off the back of that opening goal, we are back down there with a corner. Rakasan tries to put that towards Thiago Polo's head at the near post. Anderson gives that back to Rakasan, who absolutely rifles that into the top right corner. Not the greatest camera angle to see that goal, but nonetheless, that is a wonderful effort from Kalen Rakasan. As I said, I think either in yesterday's episode or the day before, he has so far been our player of the group stages, picking up numerous goals and assists. That is a wonderful strike there, and we are 2-0 up, about 10 minutes shy of half-time. And that is half-time in this one. We are 2-0 up at half-time off the back of those two highlights right around the half-hour mark, and we are absolutely battering them as well. So really happy with how this is going. I do believe RB Leipzig still 1-0 up over Inter, so as things stand, we would still be finishing third in this group. That could change a little bit if there was an equaliser there in that game in terms of our head-to-head record with RB Leipzig, but at the moment doing quite well here with a 2-0 lead. We'll see what happens throughout the rest of this game and that game between Leipzig and Inter. And fairly early on here in the second half, there is a highlight. Partizan try and boot one deep, but Thiago Polo gets his head on the end of there, and we try and do something here somewhat on the counter-attack. Kalen Rakasan tries to make his way forward, slide tackle, but it does fall back into the feet of Matthews, and he puts it back in there for Frederick Larsson. He will pick up a double, and we are well and truly cruising here against FK Partizan yet again. 3-0 up very early on here in the second half, and Frederick Larsson, as I said, picks himself up a double. That slide tackle there on Kalen Rakasan did fall rather fortuitously there for Matthews, but he gets the ball back and puts a nice ball in there for Frederick Larsson to slot away into the bottom left corner. And only a few minutes off the back of that third goal, we are back down there for a throw-in. Alejandro Meza trying to pick out Frederick Larsson, but Elias Anderson does track back to get the ball back. Zimmerman far post squares that for Larsson. Absolute sitter to complete his hat-trick. Somehow hits the post, and we are still 3-0 up and still sitting third in the group. And shortly off the back of that last highlight where Frederick Larsson really should have got his hat-trick, we're going to make that change, which was just on screen with Thiago Polo on a yellow card. Ali Ramadan will be coming on for him. And up to the 69-minute mark, it's a nice time to be making our second substitution. Basaro Gay is down to a red heart, playing well, but will take him off this game fairly well. Under control, Caviglia can come on for him. Giroud will go back to the DM role for the last 20 minutes. We still hold a 3-0 lead, still sitting in third place in the group. And up to the 79-minute mark now, still nothing happening since that great chance for Larsson to complete his hat-trick, but Zimmerman is down to a red heart. Not on a hat-trick, we'll bring on Fabio Maliano for him, but all things staying the same as they were when you were last here with just over 10 minutes left. And not too long off the back of that last substitution, it is a throw-in here for FK Partizan. 3-0 up, this could certainly be an interesting scoreline in terms of goal differential. If Inter Milan did grab an equaliser there against RB Leipzig, could make things very interesting in terms of who might finish second in this group. A poor pass there, and Kalen Rakasan gets a chance to slot away. Benjamin Rubio, tight angle, puts it wide. That should have been 4-0, but still 3-0 with just over 5 minutes left. And we are into injury time in this one. A pretty quiet game in terms of highlights, but we have been very clinical in front of goal. With those that we have seen, we pick up a very comfortable 3-0 win to keep that good record there against FK Partizan. I did not see an update on the score there between Leipzig and Inter Milan throughout that second half, so I suspect we are dropping down into the Europa League, albeit with a very respectable 10 points from this group. We will get through the post-match and just see exactly where we are going to end up, and indeed that is the case, so I suppose that's not a terrible thing in terms of the Builder Nation side of this save, but we couldn't quite get the job done there against Inter Milan. If we didn't give away that late penalty a few episodes ago when we played those guys at the San Siro, we would end up above them because, of course, we would go draw out of that game, and that would have given us enough of a points buffer on those guys. But in the end, we get a good 10 points out of that group and will end up in the knockouts of the Europa League. As I said, that's probably quite good in terms of the Build a Nation side of this save, but it's a slight regression on last year when we did make the knockouts of the Champions League for the first time, but that could be quite good in terms of our chances of winning our first European trophy in this save. As I said, very respectable 10 points. We are going down to the Europa League. We'll come back shortly and check in on the results to see exactly who we could get in that first knockout round of the Europa League and see who we do get when the draw takes place. And we are back, not quite up to the draw, so we won't quite reveal where teams did finish in the group stages of the Champions League or Europa League just yet, but a bit of a club update not too long after the previous expansion has been completed here at the Husavik Heroes. We are getting another one that will take the capacity up to 4,500, up from the expanded 3,000 off the back of the expansion, which only concluded recently. You probably haven't seen much of that on camera, of course, as we still need to get up to 9,000 people to make this a ground worthy of hosting Champions League games. So we've still got a long way to go. I'm wondering if it would just be easier for us to build a new stadium, but the board are very, very committed to just expanding this one. So that is a little bit of a club update, yet another stadium expansion, which will be taking place throughout the next season of the domestic league here. But we continue to build up that capacity here at the Husavik Heroes. We will come back shortly to the Europa League knockout draw and check in on who we could get in that first knockout round. And we have gone forward about to view the first knockout round draw for the Europa League. But before we do get into that, we will go through the results from both the Champions League and Europa League group stages. There on screen you can see the results from the top half of the draw. So Juventus and Barcelona got out of Group A. It will be Nice making their way down into the Europa League. Of course, we're not going to be able to play any of these teams which finished third in their groups until a few rounds deeper into the knockouts of the Europa League. If we do make it that far, Group B, PSG and Liverpool, as you would expect, get into the knockouts of the Champions League. Hertha Berlin, who we did defeat on our road to a previous European final. Can't quite remember if it was the Europa League or the Conference League, but nonetheless, they are dropping down into the Europa League. Group C, it will be AC Milan and Bayern Munich, just getting through to the Champions League knockouts there by the skin of their teeth. That is a great effort from AC Milan, not dropping a point in that very strong group, and it is Sevilla who are going to be in the Europa League. Of course, that is the group where HK got absolutely thrashed. In Group D, Manchester City and Ajax are going through to the Champions League knockouts. Rangers will drop down to the Europa League, and now down to the bottom half of the draw in Group E. It is Real Madrid and Lille in the Champions League knockouts. Dortmund will drop down to the knockouts of the Europa League. They could be stiff opposition come the latter part of this competition if we make it that far. Group F, Chelsea and Real Sociedad are in the Champions League knockouts. Anderlecht in the Europa League. Yes, please go very far. We know we can thrash you guys. And Group G, Man United and Napoli are in the knockouts of the Champions League. Feyenoord are dropping down into the Europa League, and the group that my head is probably blocking is, of course, the group that we were in, and that was where RB Leipzig and Inter Milan made their way through to the Champions League knockouts, and we are going into the Europa League. And now we'll pop on down to the Europa League and see who have made their way through to the knockouts of that competition now that we are dropping down into it. And here it is. So topping Group A is Leicester City. Shakhtar is a team who we could get in the first knockout round of the Europa League. That is a team which HK defeated in a Champions League playoff side. Certainly fancy our chances against those guys in the first knockout round. Group B, Bologna are through to the second knockout round. Atletico Madrid are in the first knockout round. That would be a very tough tie, as would Group C, albeit potentially to a lesser extent, as Union Berlin have made their way through to the second knockout round, and Monaco are in the first knockout round, albeit Monaco, a team who haven't made their way into Europe too much in this save. And you could actually say the same about Atletico Madrid over the past few seasons as well. So maybe those two teams wouldn't be as big of a challenge as I am making them out to be, but they are certainly two big names in that first knockout round draw for the Europa League, who we could get down to Group D. Olympiacos make their way through to the second knockout round of the Europa League. That is the team that we did beat in the Champions League playoffs. That would be a team I'd be quite happy to take on in the second knockout round of the Europa League. But Sporting of Portugal, a team who we did beat in the semi-finals of the Europa League a few seasons ago, they are one of our possible opposition in this first knockout round. Group E, Freiburg are through to the second knockout round, and Troyes of France are one of our possible opponents in the first knockout round. Group F, Arsenal, that is a good team, in this Europa League this season. They are through to the second knockout round after topping their group. Zenit are one of our possible opponents. In the first knockout round, Valencia top Group G. Sassuolo is a team who we could take on in this first knockout round. And down to Group H, which my head might be blocking, Porto have topped that group. They are through to the second round, and it is Osijek of Croatia who we could get in this upcoming first knockout round draw, and we will take part in that right now. So we'll just wait and see exactly who we do get. First up is Sporting of Portugal, and they will get Feyenoord from the Netherlands. Next up is Zenit of Russia. They will get Anderlecht of Belgium. What's coming up next? Sassuolo of Italy. It's a decent team in terms of this first knockout round here is Sassuolo. They get Dortmund. That is a big tie in this first knockout round of the Europa League. Next up, we have Monaco of France, another big team coming from the Europa League group stages this time around, and they get Hertha Berlin. So both of the German teams have got some interesting matchups here in this Europa League first knockout round, taking on some teams from fellow Big Five leagues in Europe. Next up is Shakhtar Donetsk. I'd be very happy if we take these guys on off the back of what H catered to them in a Champions League playoff. They will get Sevilla. You will back Sevilla in that one. Next up is Atletico Madrid. We have a bit of history against these guys from the group stages of the Europa League a few seasons ago. Hopefully we can avoid them, albeit there's not many options left for us at this stage of the draw, and they get Rangers. That's another quite big tie in the first knockout round here of the Europa League. So that means we have got one of Troyes or Osijek left to draw here in the first knockout round of the Europa League. Next up, it is Troyes, and that is who we will get. So we're going to have to play a team out of Ligue 1, but it is a team who probably don't have too much experience in European football. I think it is fair to say, and Nice are going to be taking on Osijek. That looks like a quite nice draw there for Nice in this first knockout round of the Europa League. But we get Troyes. As I said, I might have to do a little bit of investigating into these guys because I don't think they're a team I'm that familiar with being in League 1, to be honest. If we have a look at their recent history, it's like they've been a little bit of a yo-yo club for the most part, but had a really good season in 2029-30, and that is how they made their way into the Europa League. So they're certainly quite new to European football. Hopefully we can make the most of that come tomorrow's episode and beat those guys to make our way through to the second knockout round of the Europa League. As I said, hopefully we can go nice and deep in this competition to help out the coefficient. We'll have another quick check in on that as well off the back of those two wins in today's episode. There is how things do look at the moment leading into this current season. But if we factor in the performances so far this season, we are still on for a drop, albeit we have certainly closed the gap on those nations above us like Turkey, Denmark, and Austria, as well as Russia. They all look like nations that if we can get a little bit of a roll going in the knockouts of the Europa League, we could jump above. So still on for a drop of one position on the coefficient chart, but hopefully we can do well enough in the knockouts of this Europa League to jump above a few of those nations and hopefully make our way back inside that top 15 and get that second Champions League qualifying spot back for a few seasons' time. But that will do it for today's episode, making our way through to the end of the Champions League group stage, finishing third in our group, albeit on a pretty good tally of 10 points, and we have been drawn against Troyes of France for the first knockout round of the Europa League. If you did enjoy today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. The plan is to come back with both legs of that tie against Troyes tomorrow. Of course, that is in late February, so I've got about 3 months to get through off camera. I'll try my best to get through that. I'll let you guys know down in the comments if I can't quite get that far. We might come back and maybe just do the first leg of that one if that is the case. But of course, also around about that time, the transfer window will open up as well, and I'll be doing a little bit of scouting in between now and then as well, seeing who we can get our hands on to try and improve this Volsungur team come the start of the next European qualifying cycle. But hopefully we'll be back tomorrow with both legs of that first knockout round of the Europa League against Troyes. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.